Mary Cariola Center, transforming lives of people with disabilities. More at marycariola.org. And Excellus Blue Cross Blue Shield, with a mission to address health inequities by building up communities and breaking down health barriers. Excellus Blue Cross Blue Shield, everybody benefits. More at excellusbcbs.com.
And good afternoon from our WXXI studios in Rochester. Evan Dawson with you. This is our typical time slot for Connections. Of course, it is Inauguration Day, and we're just sort of flowing with what's been going on, getting you the NPR coverage. We're going to take a very short break, and we're going to come back and close this hour with a couple of perspectives on some of what you've been hearing from President Trump and from some other leaders in Washington. Let's do that in just a moment. I'm Evan Dawson. Connections listeners, today was going to be a day where we were going to spend a lot of time reflecting on what we were seeing on Inauguration Day. We're going to move some of the conversation that was going to happen today to Wednesday. That's what you do when news events break like this. But I do want to give a little bit of time for our guests who've set aside time in their afternoon today to say hello and to get some response. Luis Martinez is a management consultant and a former candidate for New York State Senate. He's on the line with us. Richard Dollinger, among other things, a retired judge and New York State Senator, on the line with us. Let me start with Luis, who told us during his own state Senate campaign that your feelings was that we do need to see change at the southern border, and that was a big theme today at the inauguration. What stood out to you, Luis?
Buenas tardes, damas y caballeros. Luis Martinez here.
It's nice to hear you. Indeed.
Yes, we need to close the border. Last time I was in the presence of your radio show and your guests, I had the privilege of being able to say what was the truth then and the truth now. We have to close the border and return to normalcy. Remember, I am a legal immigrant. I was under a visa waiver that was created by President Dwight Eisenhower, and I came to the United States for asylum. So did my entire extended family, 4 generations deep. So I understand this topic, if you don't mind, and the opinions of people like me is that we have to close the border and go back to an orderly process.
And let me just ask you, and again, we're going to talk a lot more on Wednesday, but I'm looking at a CBS News and YouGov poll, Luis. Every major age category of American adults starting 18 years old and older has a positive optimism rating. At least 51% or more are optimistic about the next 4 years. Are you optimistic about the next 4 years with Trump back in the White House?
Absolutely, because we need to come back to law and order. We need to come back to things that are real, like men cannot get pregnant. We need to come back to parents having, and the judge can help me with this, Your Honor, having the agency over their children, period, full stop, and not hand it over to people that we don't know and whose values we don't recognize. That's just a few things to talk about.
Luis, you're a gentleman for hanging in there, and I look forward to talking to you on Wednesday. Thank you for being with us. Judge Dollinger, what stood out to you today, down to our last couple minutes?
Well, here it's simple for me, Evan, and there's no surprise in this speech today, in the inaugural speech. These are all the things he promised to do. He talked about closing the border. He talked about sending troops to the border. He talked about sealing it off, about drill, baby, drill. I assume that most applies to Alaska. It seems to ignore the fact that right now the United States is energy independent. We are the largest producer of energy in the world. But he did, I will say this, it was a campaign speech. It was, these are my promises and this is what I'm going to fulfill. I did say that I worry about things like the line of manifest destiny. That suggests to me that the United States is going to be a bully in the future, and I'm not sure that being a bully is where we want to be. 2 other things real quickly.
Yeah.
He didn't mention the pardons of the January 6th protesters. That was always something that was very much in his political vocabulary during other moments. And he really glossed over the changes at Health and Human Services that Mr. Kennedy is talking about, and the anti-vaccine group. The bottom line is this. I thought it was a political speech. He didn't really talk about how he was going to raise people's hopes. but he certainly suggested that that's his goal is to do it. I'm not quite sure when he uses words like we're the catalog of catastrophes in the United States, our economy is the end of the world, we're at a precipice where the world is changing. I thought it was an effective speech for his audience. It'll be fascinating to see what he actually does. I'll wait and see what he does before I comment that much further.
Judge, I hope we can get you back on Wednesday. You're also a gentleman for hanging in there with us, and I want to thank you for doing that.
Not a problem. Glad to do it. All in the spirit of a better America, Evan. Keep going.
Well, thank you. And that's Richard Dollinger, Luis Martinez. Again, our great thanks to them for hanging in there, listening to these historic events. It is a historic day. It's Inauguration Day. And much more conversation with them and with you on our various platforms. So listening on your terrestrial radio, listening on the WXXI mobile app, listening on WXXInews.org, watching on the WXXI News YouTube channel. I'm probably missing something. We try to be everywhere. But the bottom line is we hope that you're going to stay with us, well, all week, every day at these times. And we'll come back and talk about what happened on this historic day. Wherever you are, have a wonderful afternoon. And we are back with you tomorrow on member-supported public media.
This program is a production of WXXI Public Radio. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of this station, its staff, management, or underwriters. The broadcast is meant for the private use of our audience. Any rebroadcast or use in another medium without expressed written consent of WXXI is strictly prohibited. Connections with Evan Dawson is available as a podcast. Just click on the Connections link at WXXInews.org.